So now that we've talked about this idea of an externality, we're going to talk about types of goods, all right, and their characteristics. After we've done this, we're going to kind of pull together the whole picture. So we're going to be looking at all of the topics we've covered, from the types of markets, oligopoly, monopolistic competition, perfect competition, monopolies, types of economic side effects, so negative and positive externalities, how to address those, and types of goods. So goods have two primary characteristics. So the first one is excludable versus non-excludable. Excludable just means that people have to pay to access the good to use it. Non-excludable is something you don't have to pay to access. Then we have the second characteristic, rival versus non-rival. So rival means that if I'm consuming it, that affects other people's ability to consume it. Non-rival means one person's consumption doesn't affect other people's access to the good. So excludable gets at this idea of, do you have to pay for it? And rival gets at this idea of kind of scarcity. Does my consumption affect your consumption? So based on that, we have four types of goods. We've got a private good, which is both excludable and rival. You have to pay for it, and your consumption affects other people's ability to consume. So if we're thinking about that, food would be a private good, right? You have to purchase it, so it's excludable, and there's a limited supply of it, so it's rival. No, you're the only one that can consume that apple you purchased. Your neighbor can't go into the store and buy that same apple, right? Then we have this idea of common resources, which are rival and non-excludable. So this is something that people don't have to pay to access, but that is rival. So one person's consumption affects another. So think about like library books, for instance. They're non-excludable. You don't have to pay for them to access them, but they are rival. We can't take out the same book at the same time. Then we have public goods, which are non-excludable and non-rival, which means you don't have to pay for it, and one person's consumption doesn't affect another. So that would be like Wikipedia, for instance. Everyone can access it, and my accessing it doesn't affect your ability to access it. Then we have artificially scarce goods, which means they're excludable and non-rival. So you have to pay for it, but your consumption doesn't affect another. We've got some examples in this table, so pause the video and take that down. Right. We're going to do this practice exercise where we come up with some examples, review it in class, but for now, try to think of some examples of each type of good and jot them down in your notebook so you're prepared to discuss them with the rest of the class. So that means you're thinking about a private good, artificially scarce good, a common resource, and a public good. Try to jot down some examples for those. All right, so we do have some problems that arise with these different types of goods. One problem is the free rider problem if it's a non-excludable good. So if you don't have to contribute or pay anything to access the good, then there's going to be a problem where some people don't contribute anything and they just use it. All right, so the free rider problem frequently comes up when we have a group project. All right, so one of the group members can benefit from the other people contributing to the group, and it's non-excludable, right? They don't have to pay anything to access it. The consequence is the good is going to be underprovided, which means that since it's getting overused, there's going to be less of it available than there needs to be. We've got another practice problem, so go ahead and try that. And just like the one before, we'll discuss it in class. All right, so there's always going to be this cost-benefit analysis for public goods. So we're going to have to consider the social cost and the social benefit, and then make decisions about how much of it we want to provide, how much of a public good should be provided. Common resources are going to be overused, all right, because they are free, so people don't have to pay to access them. Because of that, we have this tragedy of the commons, all right? So this is the idea that no one takes responsibility for maintaining, all right? And because nobody takes responsibility for maintaining it, it's overused and it falls into a state of disrepair. Right. One of the things that bugged me a lot when I was in college is we had a shared kitchen in our dorm room, in our dorm building. All right. No one person was responsible for maintaining its cleanliness. And as a result, people would just use the dishes and load up the sink and then not clean them. So when I went in there, I'd have to address this problem of tragedy of the commons. So how do we prevent this overuse and this kind of abuse? Well, we've got 3 ways to do that. We can tax, which raises the cost of using that resource, right? So it prevents overuse because it's expensive. We can give tradable licenses, which sets a maximum quantity people can use. And we can make it excludable, all right, by giving property rights. So we can make it so only certain people can access the good. So make sure you give those practice prompts a try, where you name an example of each type of good, and then you complete that problem that we scrolled by. We're going to review them in class.